Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know last time I said I would probably be doing Photoshop next, but I've had a lot of requests about getting to the more stop motion related stuff, so I'm going to do a quick video on sculpting. So this is my first step. I'm going to start with this. This is an armature map. Okay, and what this is it's going to be a sketch of whatever you're sculpting, and it's going to be proportionate. And I'm going to start with correct proportions, and if you don't have anatomy stuff, if you're doing something like this, then I strongly suggest getting Brigman. This is the most complete book. You can also get tons of these little Brigman books. This is really, really good stuff, but you're just basically going to need some good anatomy. There are different theories on anatomy. Michelangelo has his head, I believe it's 8 heads tall diagram, and then there's a 7.5 tall version. This is actually based on the 7.5 tall head tall version. So what that means is this character is 7.5 heads tall. So that's my basic diagram of the human character that I'm going to start with. But I'm going to put pivot points in here and draw. I took a ruler and came through and mapped out the skeleton and where I want on my pivot points. So there's pivot point here at the pelvis, there's pivot point here, pivot point at the knee, pivot point right here. It goes out to the shoulder and then down to the elbow and the wrist, etc., etc. That's going to tell me how I'm going to actually make my armature, and it's going to give me a diagram that I can always use to be sure that everything is in correct proportions. Okay, so I'm going to start with this stuff. This is 1/8 inch aluminum armature wire. You can get it at any really advanced art store or ceramic store. You might find it at Hobby Lobby, something like that, but can't promise anything. What you want to do is I'm going to start here, which is going to be just past the wrist. Okay, and I'm going to bring it up here, bring it up to the shoulder, and then I've already got it slightly started here, and then I'm going to bring it up right to the center, and at this point you're going to want some needle nose pliers. These have been dipped in Plastidip here, and I really highly recommend doing something like this if you're bending armature wire, because as you can see, it has a rubber coating, and it's going to keep it from cutting into your wire, and that is a big no-no, because as soon as you get a nick in armature wire, it will break. I mean, it will just, you'll have a couple of good bends in it, and then it will just give up the ghost and break. Okay, so get a nice right angle there, come down to this pivot point right here, and I'm gonna bend at this pelvis pivot point here, okay, and bring it over to the hip. And you really mainly need to worry about getting it lined up 2 pivot points at a time. As long as you're kind of lined up 2 at a time, then you'll be all right. The rest of it will go all over the place. Don't worry about that. Okay, I'm going to bring it down here to the foot. Okay, and at this point, I'm going to do a little maneuver. I'm going to give myself a bit of a foot, okay? Let it come past that, and then I'm going to loop it around, okay? And I'm going to use my rubber grip pliers to give myself a nice tight loop down here, and then I'm going to come back. Now, the trick you can use now is you can just simply bring it back up and bend at all the same bend points. You just need to match the wire that you just made going back up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Okay, so I'm going to get out my needle nose cutters. I believe they have gone missing, so I'm going to use these. Alright, so there's 1/2 of my armature. Okay, now what you can do is you can just measure out another piece just like this. Okay, and be sure that you don't lose track of your proportions as you go. That could be bad. You want to make sure that you are really sticking dead on to the bends that you have made previously. And again, be very careful not to scratch or nick this wire, because if it bends, it will cause you problems down the line and we'll want to break there. Okay, so we're going to do this foot again. Yep, looking good. Going to give it a nice crease. Okay, that's looking good. And then I'm going to bring it right back up and bend it right back in the same spots. And you can be somewhat loose here, especially with these bends. There's some room for play, not much. But, oh, you know what I did? I didn't keep going. Okay, so, good thing I didn't cut it. So, here we go. We're going to get it up to here, and then we've got this bend here. And then we got one more going to come down the arm. And we are done. Make sure that I get it somewhat close. It's okay if it's a little long. You don't want it a little short, though. Much worse. Okay, so now what we have are our 2 halves of an armature. There are different ways to do this. There are different methods to this that will produce different results depending on what your needs are. You can do this in such a way that you have removable arms, for instance, or removable legs, or different movable parts. I am doing this so that I will have removable hands. I don't really need removable hands, but it's kind of convenient because I will be switching to a different gauge of wire at the hands. So it's going to be nice to have a way to plug in different hands, but it's not necessary. When you're doing a character for stop motion, it just isn't all that necessary to do the miniature or the armature in such a way that you can take it apart, because you're going to be casting it in foam latex all in one piece. Okay. If anything, you might remove the head, but you're certainly not going to be taking it all apart the way you would if you were trying to cast something hard and rigid. Okay, so here we go. We got our wires. Now, I'm going to do something you probably didn't expect. I'm going to bend them right back out where they were. I'm going to get a drill. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to make sure this crease is a little bit tighter. Okay. Put it in my chuck. Okay, that's good. That's good enough. And then I'm gonna, now, this is an important distinction here. I have to point out, I am not making an armature for stop motion. This is for the sculpture. If I were doing an armature for stop motion, I would be a little more strict about how I'm doing all this, and all these parts would be designed a little bit differently because they would have different needs. Okay, but that's not